I had $50 million in my account, but I kept it a secret. My children treated me like a pauper while pampering my old rival, their stepfather. They ridiculed my simple life, unaware of my true power. And then, at their bankruptcy hearing, I revealed the truth about who really owned their homes. This moment stunned everyone, and the fallout was unavoidable. Before we go on, please subscribe to the channel and tell us where you are listening from in the comments. God, what a junk heap. Emily sneered as she got out of her luxury sedan, eyeing my 2000 Ford Taurus with the same revulsion she saved for garbage. The evening sun highlighted the new dents on the passenger door, marks from the used car lot where I had bought it that morning. Michael stepped out from the driver's side, shaking his head. "You are such a pauper, Dad. Our stepdad just bought a new Mercedes, black leather seats, all the bells and whistles, and here you are celebrating this." I forced a grin, wiping my hands on the dish towel I held. "Come inside. Kids, supper is ready. I prepared your favorite pot roast and baked potatoes." Pot roast? Emily's tone oozed sarcasm. "When was the last time you ate something decent? Robert took us to that fancy grill downtown last week. $150 steaks, imported wines." They trailed me into the tiny kitchen where I had arranged the table with my finest dishes, the ones their mother left after the divorce. The ceiling light threw stark shadows over the faded linoleum, making everything seem tinier, more rundown. "Sit down, please," I said, pointing to the chairs. "I figured we could celebrate as a family." Michael dropped into his seat as if granting me a favor. "Celebrate what?" "Exactly. That clunker outside. Dad, it is humiliating. My buddies spot me stepping out of that thing." "Your buddies do not count," I answered, dishing out the pot roast. "What counts is reliable wheels." Emily chuckled. A harsh, slicing noise. "Reliable, it appears patched together with hopes and glue. Robert plans to get me a new Audi for my birthday." "An Audi, Dad, not some salvage yard find." The spoon shook a bit in my grip. I placed it down, observing them poke at their meal with the zeal of inmates facing execution. "You know," Michael went on, "it is tough explaining to folks why our dad lives this way when our stepdad—" "Your stepdad is not your father," I cut in, my tone sharper than planned. "No, but he behaves like one," Emily fired back. "He supports us. He worries about our reputation, our prospects. Look at this dump." "Dad, when did you last buy fresh furniture or repair that dripping tap I scanned the kitchen? The drooping cupboards, the assorted seats, the old fridge buzzing in the corner." Everything was tidy, working, but clearly aged. In the divorce, I had shifted to this rental while they remained in our family house with their mom and Robert. "I live modestly," I stated cautiously. "There is worth in that." Michael almost gagged on his potatoes. "Dad, you toil at the hardware shop. You drive a vehicle older than my graduate degree. What sort of model is that?" The remarks struck like punches. I had spent 35 years at that hardware shop. Climbing from stock clerk to deputy manager, I had funded their colleges, never skipped a birthday or ceremony. When their mother ditched me for Robert, a prosperous builder with cash and flair, they picked sides without pause. "I have always taken care of you," I said softly. "University fees, vehicle installments, that European trip for Emily one summer. That was ages ago. Dad." Emily dismissed with a wave. "Robert has backed us since Mom wed him. He purchased Michael that condo, aided with my nuptials." "Nuptials you excluded me from," I grumbled, "because you would have arrived in some second-hand outfit, likely driven that eyesore." Michael pointed to the window. "We could not endure that shame." Something broke within me. The patient endurance I had built over years of their scorn, their offhand meanness, their utter neglect for all I had given up for them. It shattered like thawing ice. I rose suddenly, my chair grating on the floor. "Leave!" They gaped at me, utensils midway to their lips. I said, "Leave right now." "Dad," Emily began. "Do not." My voice held an end that startled even me. "Just go. Take your views on my car, my home, my existence, and depart." Michael rose gradually, his cheeks red with fury and shock. "Okay. But do not come weeping to us when you require aid." "I will not," I replied, escorting them to the exit. "Believe me." They collected their items in dazed quiet. Emily halted at the doorway, her look a blend of astonishment and hurt ego. "You are erring, Dad. We are the sole kin you have remaining." I observed them enter their pricey vehicle, the motor humming alive with the smooth precision of German craft. The rear lights vanished around the bend, leaving me solitary with the resonance of their words and the burden of 35 years of built-up bitterness. The motor sound dwindled into the distance, leaving a quiet denser than their remarks. I lingered at the window, gazing at the vacant road where their car had stood, my hand still quivering with anger. "Pauper," I murmured to the empty space. They labeled me a pauper. I cleared the kitchen automatically, removing the scarcely touched plates. The pot roast congealed on the platter. Hours of effort squandered on kids who viewed me as merely a disgrace to handle? After they sped into the darkness, I secured the door and slumped into my seat. The home felt altered now, buzzing with the spark of severed ties. I retrieved my laptop and went to the known site, inputting the codes I had learned by heart years back. The display loaded leisurely, then showed figures that would have hushed my children. 50 million, 320,000, $491.87, $50 million amassed share by share, venture by venture. Over 45 years of meticulous strategy. It began with my initial wage from the steel mills at age 23, rather than squandering it on drinks and fun like my mates. I acquired 6 shares of General Electric, then 12 of Pepsi, then further, always further, plowing back earnings and contributing what I could afford. I recalled those initial years clearly, pulling extra hours at the mill, returning home coated in grime and fatigue, only to devote time studying firms, poring over fiscal summaries by lamp glow. My first spouse deemed me fixated, but I understood I was constructing something vital, something lasting, when the steel sector crashed, but I had already spread out. While my neighbors forfeited their positions and futures, I quietly switched to the hardware shop and persisted in investing. Google at $15 a share, Tesla at 10, Netflix at 20. Firms that appeared hazardous then but seemed destined to me. The secret had been my load and my trial. I had desired to discover who genuinely cared for me, who would support me when I seemed penniless. Their mother had flunked that trial spectacularly, abandoning me for Robert's showy triumph. Now my children had flunked it too, dubbing me a pauper while perched on a wealth that overshadowed their stepfather's humble building firm. I had intended to bequeath it all to them. Every share, every payout, every painstakingly nurtured dollar. But seated in my kitchen, recalling the disdain in their tones, I sensed a shift within. They did not merit an inheritance. They merited a lesson. I launched another browser tab and started hunting property logs in Boulder. But it did not take long to locate what I sought. Michael's condo complex where he paid $2,000 a month in rent. Emily's townhouse where she and her spouse resided for $1,800 monthly. Both holdings belonged to Rocky Ridge Properties, a modest real estate firm that had struggled since the outbreak. I grinned for the first time that night. Tomorrow I would place some calls. Rocky Ridge Properties was set to get an offer they could not decline. "You wish to witness a pauper I whispered to the vacant room. "Allow me to demonstrate what genuine hardship resembles." I shut the laptop and went to bed, my thoughts already sorting the particulars. They had shamed me for the final time. Now it was my chance to instruct them on repercussions. Lying in bed, I revisited the decades of prudent decisions that erected my fortune, concealed from all, including the kin who had long rejected me as useless. The irony did not escape me. While they had been contrasting me to their stepfather's moderate achievement, I had been silently gathering riches that surpassed their boldest fantasies. Tomorrow would usher new options. Tonight, I drifted to sleep, scheming my children's initial genuine tutorial in modesty. Morning light seeped through the drapes, drawing me from restless slumber filled with echoes of last night's jabs. I twisted and turned for hours, their voices looping in my mind like a faulty tape. Pauper, disgrace, junk heap. The fury had solidified into something firmer during the dim hours. Resolve. I trudged to the kitchen and booted up my ancient desktop, the fan groaning to life with known gripes. While it loaded, I brewed coffee in the same chipped cup I had used for 25 years. The dawn glow through my small pane lit dust specks twirling in the air. But my attention was fully on the screen. My investment account opened with its routine security cues. I scrolled to my assets, browsing through decades of wise picks. There, Amazon bought at 18, now valued over 500. Microsoft acquired at 10, presently at 350. I chose several holdings, sufficient to yield the funds I required for the next step. The approval page emerged. "Are you certain you wish to sell 60,000 shares of Amazon Incorporated?" I hit, confirm without doubt. As the loading icon whirled, I sipped my brew and let my mind wander back to the split. Susan had been so assured in her pick, so positive that Robert's construction enterprise meant stability, while I was merely a visionary tinkering with spare change in stocks. She had chuckled when I demanded to keep my minor pursuit apart from our shared holdings. "You and your stocks," she had remarked during one of our last disputes. "When will you mature and invest in something tangible?" Something tangible, I nearly laughed now, viewing the electronic approval on my display. The transaction had produced $25 million in ready cash, more than Robert would earn in 15 lifetimes. The doorbell chimed sharply, breaking my reverie. I checked the time. 8:45 a.m. Who would call this early? I opened the door to discover Susan on my stoop, her face flushed with ire, her costly purse gripped like a blade. "How could you handle your own flesh that way?" she demanded, shoving past me into the house. "Michael phoned me last night, sobbing like a kid. You ejected them, your own offspring." I shut the door slowly, keeping my poise. "They are grown now, Susan, 32 and 29 years old. They must learn courtesy." "Courtesy?" She spun around, her voice escalating. "You demeaned them. They were merely attempting to make you grasp sense about that absurd car buy." "Make me grasp sense?" I nearly smiled. "By naming me a pauper, by likening me to your spouse, as if I am some failure." "You are a failure." The words burst from her. "Look at this spot. Percival, look at your existence. You are 65 years old, dwelling in a rental, piloting a car that fits in a junkyard. Our kids are ashamed of you. Deeds have outcomes." I responded evenly. They opted for cruelty. I opted not to endure it. She gazed at me, maybe startled by my serene reply. "You have altered. You used to be sensible, empathetic. Now you are just icy. I am not icy. Susan, I am finished being a pushover. Do not dare fault this on me." she snapped. "I attempted to salvage our union, but you were always immersed in those silly money journals, babbling about firms no one knew." Robert grasps what it means to sustain a kin. "Robert," I echoed gently. "The guy you cheated with while I pulled double shifts to cover Michael's university." Her face paled. "That is old news. Is it because it appears you all still dwell in that fantasy where I am the villain and you are the sufferers?" She stood there briefly, wordless, her anger fading into what resembled doubt. Then she squared up, grabbed her bag, and headed for the exit. "This is not finished. Percival, you have wounded your kids for the last time." I watched her climb into her Mercedes, Robert's funds undoubtedly, and drive off down the curving hillside. As her taillights vanished around the turn, I could not help pondering the ridiculousness of it all. My 32-year-old son and 29-year-old daughter had dashed to their mother like tots after being refused treats. I closed the door and returned to my machine. The money from the stock disposal would be ready in 4 business days. Soon I would reveal to them all what true influence felt like. Those ensuing days merged into vigilant habit. Each dawn beginning with a peek at my inbox until the notice at last arrived. "Transfer finished. 25 million available in your bank account." I stared at the alert for a long instant, sensing the gravity of 45 years of endurance and scheming condensed into those plain terms. The funds that would transform all rested quietly in my account, awaiting my directive. I snatched my keys and drove downtown to the modest real estate bureau. Squeezed between a cafe and a thrift store, the front desk clerk, a young lady with vivid blonde hair, glanced up from her screen. "I am keen on buying an apartment complex," I stated. "The one on Summit Avenue. Units 109. She blinked. "That is a major commitment. Are you partnering with a particular broker I will deal with, whoever can seal it fast?" 25 minutes later, I faced Laura Jenkins, a mid-40s agent with weary eyes and a pile of property dossiers. She pushed a folder over the table. "Rocky Ridge Properties has faltered since the outbreak." She clarified. "They are eager to unload, but they want $3.2 million for the structure. I will accept it at that figure. No queries." Her brows arched. "Do you not wish to review the check reports? The lease records? The upkeep logs? I know the asset well." I drew out my checkbook. How swiftly can we finalize the next 2.5 hours blurred in forms and calls? I signed papers with a firm hand, my thoughts sometimes drifting to the occasions I had assisted Michael with his rent when he was jobless. 4,000 here, 3,000 there, always with the vow he would repay. He never did. Laura Jenkins appeared nearly stunned by the pace of the deal. "I have never witnessed a cash buy proceed this rapidly," she muttered. Observing me endorse the last documents, "I do not favor wasting moments." I answered, "That afternoon, I headed to the courthouse to formally log the title. The official, an older gentleman with heavy lenses, stamped the files with skilled ease. "Congratulations, Mr. Underwood. You now own 852 Summit Avenue." From there, I went to another agent's office across the city. Emily's townhouse was registered with a different firm, but the procedure was strikingly alike. The proprietor, a widow named Mrs. Wong, had inherited the asset from her spouse and was anxious to sell. "It has been endless troubles," she admitted over the line. "The present occupants are okay, but the repair expenses are draining me. I bought the townhouse for $550,000 cash outright. By 6 p.m. I possessed both of my children's residences." Driving through boulders, twisting roads back to my humble rental, I pondered how these structures would soon serve as instruments in my grasp, converting years of silent investing into a barrier against their contempt. The afternoon sunlight threw long shades over the hillside. and I experienced something I had not felt in years. Total command. At home, I laid the titles across my kitchen surface like a commander inspecting war strategies. Michael's condo secured. Emily's townhouse secured. Stage 1 of my teaching initiative was done. I lifted my phone and browsed to the asset oversight firm's details. Tomorrow I would notify them that leases would rise sharply. After all, fresh proprietorship meant fresh regulations. My digit lingered over the dial key as I mulled the talks that would ensue. Soon my kids would discover that their pauper father had turned their landlord. With the title still fresh from the printer, I wasted no moments, accessing my nameless email to launch the process. The night's calm contemplation had hardened my aim, changing yesterday's wrath into today's measured move. I composed a new note to Laura Jenkins, my fingers firm on the keys. As the fresh proprietor of 852 Summit Avenue, I am enacting prompt lease hikes. Unit 5 will jump from $2,000 to $6,000 monthly. Starting next month, please alert the occupant right away. I stopped, recalling Michael's 27th birthday when I had discreetly cleared his charge card balance. $4,000 he had accumulated on eateries and attire. He had acknowledged me with a distracted bob, already plotting his next buy. The second message was just as concise. For the townhouse asset, Unit C lease rises from $1,800 to $5,400 monthly. Identical schedule. Manage this quietly. I pressed send on both, then reclined in my chair. The messages dispatched. My phone buzzed within 3 hours. Laura Jenkins's voice held a hint of worry I had not heard prior. Mr. Underwood, I have issued the alerts as asked, but I must inform you. The responses were fierce. Go ahead, I said, setting aside my coffee mug. The young fellow in Unit 5. Michael. He totally flipped. Began yelling about theft. Banged the door so forcefully I feared it would shatter. He is vowing to relocate instantly. I uttered a neutral sound, concealing my contentment. And the young lady in the townhouse? Laura proceeded. She collapsed, weeping. Kept repeating. How can we manage this now again and again? She implored me to reach the proprietor, said she would do whatever to bargain. Whatever to bargain. I recalled Emily's bridal event when I had slipped her an envelope with $6,000 for her getaway. She had crammed it in her bag without peeking, too occupied flaunting her gift list to Robert's affluent pals. These are reasonable market shifts, I informed Laura. If they cannot handle the new fees, they are free to seek lodging elsewhere. But Mr. Underwood, tripling the lease abruptly will create true difficulty. These young folks seem truly frantic. They are adults. They will sort it out. After disconnecting, I strolled to my kitchen pane and stared out at the Colorado peaks. A neighbor strolled his pup, and I overheard bits of his chat with another dweller about the strict new landlord evicting fine renters. If only they realized that strict landlord was the unassuming man they had seen tinkering in his yard for years. I launched my laptop and devoted an hour researching renter protections in Colorado, confirming my moves were fully lawful. The lease hikes were bold, but allowed with correct warning. Michael and Emily would have 40 days to choose their next steps. That night, I sat at my kitchen surface with a tiny pad, noting their likely reactions. They might beg their mother and stepfather for assistance. They might attempt to haggle straight with the enigmatic owner, or they might crawl back to their pauper father. At last prepared to display some regard. I grinned, considering the irony. They had spent years unfavorably comparing me to Robert, lauding his commercial savvy and victory. Now they would taste what actual monetary strain felt like, thanks to ventures that antedated their stepfather's whole profession. The phone rang once more. Laura Jenkins sounded even more rattled. Mr. Underwood, I hope you do not mind the late hour, but there has been a shift. The young man, Michael, Returned to the bureau this afternoon with some attorney buddy. They are attempting to contest the lease hike, asserting it is vengeful. Vengeful against what? That is what I inquired. They could not provide a direct response. The attorney appeared to grasp their argument was feeble and departed rather swiftly. I listened as she depicted the turmoil. Michael's flushed charges, Emily's calls imploring for leniency, the attorney's abashed withdrawal when he understood the hikes were legally sound. They are both persuaded someone holds a grudge against them personally, Laura added. The young woman keeps questioning who acquired the assets, but I informed her that data is private. Maintain it so. I directed. After concluding the call, I gazed at my phone as it started vibrating with an arriving note. The display showed Emily's name, and I could view the start of what seemed a frantic text. My digit paused over the respond key, interest clashing with the pleasure of letting them simmer in their alarm. The phone's steady hum shattered the afternoon stillness, a note from Emily flashing urgently on the screen. Dad, please contact me. We must discuss. It is truly vital. I set the phone aside momentarily to steady myself. The remaining buzz mirroring the agent's account from the prior night. Whatever urgency had prompted her to connect. I wanted to relish it for an instant before replying. An hour later, their vehicle arrived outside. Not the luxury sedan from before, but an aged Toyota that must have been Emily's husband's. They rapped frantically, the noise sharp and persistent against my front entrance. I opened it to find them both on my porch. Their faces marked with concern and scarcely held panic. Emily's eyes were puffy, her cosmetics smeared. Michael's jaw was tightened so firmly I could see the tendons pulsing. Dad, Emily started, her voice quaking. We are in deep trouble. Our rent just tripled suddenly and we do not know what to do. Please, Michael added, though the words appeared to grate his throat. We need your assistance. Just a loan until we can resolve this. I motioned them in hesitantly, folding my arms as they perched uneasily on my tattered sofa. The same sofa they had scorned just days prior now felt like a seat of verdict. You want cash from me? I inquired, my tone carefully impartial. Dad, please, Emily urged, tears beginning to stream. We are desperate. The new landlord will not bargain, will not even reveal who he is. We could forfeit our homes. You have called me a pauper before. I responded, shaking my head gradually. Manage it yourselves. Michael's mask fractured. I was correct then. You are one. Fine. We will just turn to Mom and our stepdad. They will aid us. They truly care about kin. Yes. Emily joined in, dabbing her eyes with her hand back. Robert would never permit us to endure like this. He comprehends what it means to back the folks you cherish. I paced to the pane, peering out at the street where their loaned car rested like a symbol of their diminished state. The irony was exquisite. They were so occupied scheming their flight to Robert that they could not perceive the snare closing around them. So go to Robert, I stated plainly. Ask him for $5,400 a month for Emily, $6,000 for Michael every month. See how enduring his kindness is? That is not the issue. Michael erupted, leaping to his feet. You are our father. You should desire to assist us. Assist you with what living above your resources, spending funds you lack on items you do not require. We do not spend funds we lack, Emily objected, but her tone lacked assurance. Really, I turned to confront them. Michael, what did you expend last month on dining out Emily? How much was that handbag you toted to supper last week? They swapped looks, and I saw the reality in their faces. They had been existing like affluent folks on middle-class earnings, subsidized by their stepfather's sporadic largesse and their own refusal. That is distinct, Michael mumbled. Is it you deride my modest existence, label me a disgrace, then rush here when your dream lifestyle collides with truth. As I spoke, my gaze landed on a small oak box on my shelf. A childhood art from Emily in grade school, decorated with vivid stars and the phrase, "Greatest dad forever." The pure young girl who had crafted that gem had matured into this frantic woman on my sofa, too arrogant to confess her errors, but not too arrogant to plead for cash. "We are sorry about the other evening," Emily said quietly. "We did not intend to injure your emotions." My emotions, I nearly chuckled. "You believe this concerns injured emotions? Then what does it concern?" Michael demanded. "Regard," I stated. "Something you have never granted me." They sat in strained silence, the load of years of casual brutality settling among us like grime. At last. Michael stood, his face red with anger and bruised pride. "Fine. We will resolve it ourselves, but do not anticipate us to come groveling back when you are elderly and need aid." "I will not," I answered calmly. As Michael stormed to the door, his farewell jab reminded me of all the times I had endured their insults. But no more would I allow that to shape our bond. Emily trailed, pausing at the threshold to glance back at me with something that could have been remorse. "This is not over, Dad," she said softly. I watched their car fade down the road, my mind already pivoting to their next maneuvers. They would head to Susan and Robert now, cap in hand, imploring rescue. Soon they would learn that their stepfather's bounty had boundaries, and their mother's sway could only extend so far. As their headlights melted into the deepening twilight, a dense quiet enveloped the house, interrupted only by my even breaths. As I contemplated their unavoidable counterstrike, I locked the door with intentional care and settled into my recliner, the leftover strain from their departing words still sparking in the air like static before a tempest. I did not wait long to witness their plan unfold. Over the following weeks, murmurs started spreading through Boulder's close community like venom in a stream. Mrs. Thompson from adjacent mentioned it first, her tone carefully balanced as she gardened. "Such a pity about your family issues. Percival, I hope you can sort them." At the cafe on Pearl Street, I overheard snippets from the corner table where Emily sat with her pal Jessica, tissues balled in her fists. "He just severed us entirely," she was saying, her voice cracking with rehearsed accuracy. "After all we have done for him, trying to help him understand his finances." The deceptions were graceful in their plainness. They depicted me as the harsh father who had forsaken his struggling offspring, while they turned into the casualties of my callous apathy. No reference to their ridicule, their years of disdain, their ceaseless contrasts to their stepfather. Michael's method was bolder. Nameless notes began materializing in my mailbox, nothing menacing enough for authorities, but sharp enough to convey their intent. "This will not conclude well for you." Read one printed note. "Kin is all," said another. The calls followed next. Unknown digits, quiet when I picked up, then Michael's voice masked but recognizable. "You erred, old-timer. We will not overlook this." I listened serenely, then disconnected without reply. Let him fury into the emptiness. The packet came on a Wednesday morning, formal and bulky. Legal stationery from Harrison and Partners, sent by certified post. I opened it cautiously, my coffee chilling as I scanned the contents, alert of plan to litigate for emotional harm and neglect of parental roles. Susan's scrawl spanned the base beside those of my kids. They were alleging I had inflicted grave mental trauma via my abrupt and unexplained halt of aid. They sought recompense for their pain and my prompt restart of monetary help. As the claims poured across the sheet, recollections of their youth allegiances breaking during the split resurfaced, toughening my position against this newest scheme. I remembered 14-year-old Michael asking if he could switch his surname to Hayes, and 16-year-old Emily declining visits because my flat was too gloomy. I grabbed my phone and called the sole attorney in Boulder I trusted. Daniel Jenkins, Laura's sibling, who had managed my asset. Buys with tact. Percival. What may I assist with? I require counsel on a baseless suit. My ex-spouse and kids are claiming emotional harm. Daniel's laugh was arid. Let me surmise. They desire funds. They want me to recommence fiscal backing. I never lawfully owed them anyway. Bring the documents. This seems pure pestering. I chose to refresh my mind with a drive into town. At the market, I was packing bags into my Ford when John Carter neared, his look awkward. Hey, Percival, I loathe raising this, but folks are chatting about you and your youngsters. What are they uttering? John. That you ousted them from their residences. That you are being spiteful because they are thriving and you are, well, a flop. I completed. Is that what they are uttering? John's face flushed. I am just relaying what is circulating. Perhaps you should converse with them. Resolve something. John, I said, shutting my trunk with purposeful calm. Sometimes the facts are not what folks wish to hear. That night, Daniel phoned with news that changed all. I have been probing your son, Michael. There are some intriguing weaknesses in his work background that might pertain to your matter. What sort of weaknesses? The type that make suits vanish rapidly. I will forward the details, but I believe you might want to consult a private sleuth. I know one discreet. He provided a name and contact. Detective Thomas Riley, retired from the Boulder force, now handling private cases. I clutched the card in my hand, feeling its keen edges as I weighed the ramifications. My kids had elected to heighten this clash, pulling our family saga into the tribunals and the neighborhood. Perhaps it was time to counter similarly. The attorney's terms still echoing in my ears. I did not waver, entering the detective's digits as dusk deepened outside my pain. I prepared tea to calm my nerves after Daniel's call. The steadfast determination against my family's assaults hardening into something tougher, more concentrated. Riley Investigations, came the rough voice. Mr. Riley, Daniel Jenkins suggested me. I need someone probed quietly. I can meet you tomorrow night. Flatiron Park by the ancient gazebo. 7:30. The next night I drove to the edges under cover of early mist. Thomas Riley was precisely what I anticipated. Weathered visage, watchful eyes. The sort of man who had spent decades deciphering people's hidden truths. What are we seeking? He inquired, settling on the park seat next to me. My son Michael labors at Summit Insurance Group. I suspect he has been skimping, perhaps inflating expense logs, forging summaries. His nature implies he would take shortcuts if he thought he could escape notice. Riley nodded, extracting a small pad. How thorough do you want the probe? Thorough enough to uncover the facts. Nothing extra, nothing less. 3 weeks later. The detective's dossier arrived in a plain brown packet. I spread the materials across my kitchen surface, examining each paper with precise care. Michael's job file depicted a pattern of growing deceit, invented travel claims, exaggerated client meal bills, even a few cases of demanding overtime for hours he never logged. Proof verified. Sorting through the sleuth's folder, I spotted reflections of Michael's lifelong shortcuts. From evading tasks as a lad to these career frauds, cementing my course ahead. The bill for an alleged client meal at an eatery that had been shut for updates reminded me of 17-year-old Michael asserting he had spent his stipend on class supplies when I later discovered gaming receipts in his satchel. I paused for maybe 40 seconds, recalling the youngster who once assisted me clean my car for change. Then I remembered his voice on the line. This will not end well for you, old-timer. I composed the nameless email meticulously, attaching copied evidence. Your staffer, Michael Underwood, has been methodically swindling your firm, Records attached. A worried resident. The note sent with a gentle digital tone. I enclosed extra copies in a packet directed to Summit Insurance Group's main office, adding a summary detailing the fraud scheme. My hands were covered. Old practices from years of prudent investing where namelessness sometimes counted. Within 10 days, the word filtered through Boulder's rumor mill. Michael had been dismissed from Summit Insurance effective at once. The formal cause was breach of firm rules, but the tales were more vivid. They discovered he was pilfering. Mrs. Thompson whispered over her barrier, nabbed him outright with phony bills. I heard her speculations with the same impartial look I had worn for 45 years of family events. When she asked my opinion, I merely said, "Deeds have outcomes." A day later, I spotted a social post from one of Emily's pals. Thoughts for the Underwood kin in this tough period. Sometimes existence just strikes from every angle. I noted Emily's growing frenzy through that bit, my musings shifting to her frailties. She had always been the more sentimental of my offspring, swifter to fracture under stress. Michael's job forfeiture would horrify her, making her ponder if she was next. The query was, what secrets was she concealing? I shut my laptop and walked to my pane, observing the Colorado sky dim over the peaks. Stage 2 of my teaching initiative was complete. Soon, it would be time to launch Stage 3. The bit about Emily's frantic posts stuck in my mind as I started the computer. Fingers ready over keys, prepared to tip the balance further. The night's thoughts on Michael's ruin had moved my attention to Emily, and the screen's soft light mirrored my increasing determination. If Michael was the raw power of their duo, Emily was the cunning operator, which meant her ruin needed a different tactic. I accessed the detective's second dossier, the one I had ordered specifically on Emily's property dealings. Thomas Riley had been exhaustive, recording a scheme of client tricks that would make any honest agent wince. Asset values pumped by 25%, base cracks hidden with clever decor setup, moisture harm concealed behind new coat and inventive display. The proof was condemning. Falsified check reports, changed asset histories, even accounts from buyers who found issues months post-sale. One older pair had purchased a residence with a faulty roof that Emily had guaranteed was freshly updated. The fixed costs had erased their nest egg. Post-dispatched, I loaded the files to 4 nameless review platforms, each entry crafted to seem natural. A concerned resident sharing proven fraud evidence. The sites took the entries immediately. My address masked through encryption layers Thomas had aided me establish. Next, I gathered email contacts from Emily's buyer files, sending each a cautiously phrased note. You may wish to probe your agent's methods. Records attached. The proof stood alone. No added remarks required. Within hours, responses surged in quickly. Boulder's property circle was tight, and news spread rapidly. My phone hummed with urgent alerts from local news portals grabbing the tale. I donned a cap and drove incognito across town, parking outside Emily's bureau, where I could watch the mayhem firsthand. Through the glass? I observed her striding anxiously, her phone to her ear. No, Mrs. Larson, I can clarify. Yes, I grasp you are distressed, but the call cut short. I could see her shoulders trembling. Another buyer burst into the bureau, his voice carrying through the pain. You have wrecked my venture. That base you vowed was sturdy is splitting in half. Emily's efforts at harm control only worsened matters. Her social defenses of her methods seemed protective and empty. These are groundless claims from nameless origins, she penned. I have always operated with honor. The feedback area blew up with refutations from confirmed buyers, each recounting their own nightmare tales, as the initial buyer critique went widespread in our small city. I envisioned Emily's face crumbling just as mine had during their endless mocks. a silent fairness at last forming. At the weekly city gathering, I sat in the rear as irate homeowners shared their accounts. The mayor demanded a probe into local property practices. The state certification panel had already gotten official grievances. Within 8 days, Emily's bureau was barren. The for lease sign in the pane narrated the tale better than any article could. That night, I found myself strolling Boulder's serene roads, inhaling the fresh Colorado breeze. The sleuth's labor had been exact and crushing. Emily's standing was ruined. Her vocation ended. Like Michael, she had learned that deeds truly had outcomes. As I turned onto my road, I noticed a heap of mail in my box. Invoices, ads, and something that made me halt. A formal packet with the seal of the Boulder County Tribunal. Inside, an insolvency filing alert with a known name, Michael Percival Underwood. My eyes sharpened on the court alert. Figuring the schedule, the session was set for next Thursday. Both my offspring would attend. Frantic and trapped, it would be the ideal platform for the closing act of my teaching initiative. The insolvency notice gazed up from the packet, its official print drawing me into the next stage as I geared for the unavoidable courtroom clash. I set aside Emily's news to tackle this fresh event, the common strand of my children's fiscal collapse weaving all with poetic accuracy. I collected my dossiers and drove to the courthouse under overcast skies, arriving early to watch the events from the rear bench. The Boulder County Courthouse reeked of aged timber and generations of legal theater, its tall ceilings resounding with hushed talks. Michael sat at the filer's desk, his counsel shuffling documents with the resigned demeanor of someone overseeing an unavoidable defeat. His fingers tapped nervously on the wood, and I could see perspiration on his brow despite the chilly morning air. Emily had come to back him, her attendance a proof of their ongoing pact against the world. She kept scanning the chamber uneasily, as if awaiting more ill tidings to emerge from the gloom. The judge, a strict woman in her 50s, examined the insolvency plea with skilled speed. Mr. Underwood, you are claiming obligations over $200,000 with holdings under $40,000. Yes, Your Honor, Michael replied, his voice hardly audible. And your main lender is noted as unknown asset holder for overdue rent. This was my instant. I stood from my place, papers in hand, feeling the load of decades rise with each stride to the front of the courtroom. Your Honor, I can explain that issue. The chamber fell mute. Michael's head whipped around, his eyes expanding as awareness hit. I am the landlord you have damned, I declared, my voice ringing clearly through the abrupt silence. And my holdings contain $50 million. Gasps spread through the courtroom. Michael's mouth gaped and shut like a stranded fish. This cannot be, he stuttered, half standing from his seat. I passed the court official my asset titles, bank records, and ousting documents. I own both assets where my offspring reside. Given their ongoing pestering and menaces, I am starting prompt ousting actions. The judge scrutinized the papers with lifted brows. Mr. Underwood, the senior Mr. Underwood, these seem proper. The insolvency filing turns irrelevant if you are the chief lender. Dad, Emily's voice snapped like a lash. You cannot do this to us. Passing the proofs, I felt the burden of decades lift. Each number on the record a proof to the endurance that now dealt this irreversible strike. The judge's hammer dropped with keen finality. Plea rejected, prompt ousting approved, session closed. The courtroom burst in whispers and rustling documents. Michael sat rigid, staring at the bank records that displayed more wealth than he had ever pictured his pauper father could hold. $50 million, he murmured. You possessed $50 million, and you allowed us to deride you, demean you, dub you a flop. I concluded, yes, I did. I desired to see who you truly were. Emily was sobbing now, her meticulously done cosmetics streaking her cheeks. We are your offspring. How could you inflict this on your own flesh? I offered you every chance to display regard, to show the traits that would have rendered you deserving successors. Instead, you picked meanness. The officer neared with the formal ousting notice. You have 96 hours to clear the sites. As I strode toward the courthouse exit, I heard steps behind me. My offspring were pursuing. Their prior assurance swapped by frantic imploring, but I kept striding, my posture erect, my mind already shifting to the serene fulfillment of fairness at last delivered. Their voices dwindled as I pushed through the heavy courthouse portals, stepping into the Colorado afternoon, where the peak air had never savored sweeter. Their shadows stretched on the courthouse rock as they rushed toward me, faces carved with a mix of dread and pretended sorrow that I had long foreseen. I adjusted my jacket against the cool gust, bearing their murmured urgencies, the unsettled courtroom strain lingering in my stance as I readied for what I knew would be their ultimate ploy. "Dad." "Hold on," Emily called, her shoes clicking desperately on the pavement. "Please, we need to converse." I halted at the courthouse steps, observing them near with the frenzy of sinking swimmers grasping for a buoy. Their earlier haughtiness had crumbled, replaced by the bare alarm of folks who had at last grasped the scale of their blunders. Michael reached me first, his face ashen and strained. "Dad, we are so remorseful." "We did not know, we never grasped you had 50 million, I finished serenely. "No, you did not know because you were too occupied deriding me to observe. Without alert." They both fell to their knees on the courthouse steps, their costly garments scraping the coarse stone. The open show attracted stares from bypassing walkers, but they were past minding looks. "Forgive us." Emily wept, her eyeliner streaming her cheeks. "We will alter, we vow. We will be improved offspring." Michael's voice broke as he spoke. "We were mistaken about all. The car, the home, the manner we addressed you. We are imploring you. Do not inflict this on us." They knelt before me, calling childhood recollections with calculated frenzy. Emily drew out a small oak heart I had shaped for her in grade school, raising it like a truce token. "Recall when you crafted this for me, you said it would always link us." "We are still your offspring, Dad. We are still kin." Observing them scramble for terms that once sliced deep, I felt the bonds of duty dissolve, replaced by a liberty gained through years of unseen strength. The heart in Emily's grasp reminded me of all the forfeits they had dismissed, all the affection they had spurned for their stepfather's glitzier gifts. "It is too late for that," I stated resolutely, stepping away from their clutching hands. "You have revealed your true hues. The wealth does not alter what you are, but we will cover rent." Michael begged. "We will secure jobs. We will—" No further. I turned from them, their pleas fading like far-off rumble as I walked to my car. I drove back through known roads, their frantic voices resounding in my recall. By the time I arrived home, the ousting procedure was already underway. My phone hummed with news from the asset oversight firm. "Both assets are being locked," Laura Jenkins reported. "The occupants have 96 hours to extract their items." Over the next 4 days, I observed from afar as my children's lives unraveled fully. Michael's joblessness left him scrambling for any labor he could snag, but his standing preceded him now. Emily's property credential was halted pending probe, her past buyers filing suits for deceit and falsity. The ousting officials arrived right on time. Through go-betweens, I learned of their hectic boxing, the neighbors assembling to view the scene, the relocation van packed with furnishings they would need to vend to afford short-term lodging. Their premium vehicles were the first to vanish, seized when they could not meet the installments. Designer outfits, costly gadgets. All the prestige emblems they had once paraded were forfeited to pawn outlets and web auctions. Michael wound up in a daily rate-in on the city fringes. His ego finally shattered. Emily sofa-hopped among pals, each visit shortening as her reception thinned. The phone rang one night as I read in my recliner. Susan's voice was taut with scarcely restrained fury. "You have ruined them, Percival. Are you content now I did not ruin them?" I answered calmly. "I merely ceased enabling their self-ruin." "They are your offspring. They ceased being my offspring the instant they chose scorn over affection, the instant they decided Robert was more precious than the man who truly nurtured them." She disconnected without more. The ousting verification call arrived the next dawn. The rep's voice, sharp and expert. "Both assets are now empty and ready for releasing. What are your directives?" I set down the phone and shifted to my desk where my investment lists shone on the screen. The figures signified more than cash now. They signified liberty, potential, an opportunity to construct something fresh from the remnants of what had been. The ousting agent's voice, still recent in my ear. I turned to the glowing display, ready to reform the remains of my former life into something unrestricted. I pocketed the phone after the call and sat at my desk, grounded by the new sense of closure from my children's pleas still echoing in my memory. I opened my investment program and started the methodical liquidation process. Not all. I had absorbed too much about the might of compound growth to forsake it wholly, but enough to finance the next phase of my existence. "Mr. Underwood." My agent's voice was professionally cordial when I phoned. "What can I assist with today?" "I wish to dispose of 35% of my holdings. Stable stocks spread across fields. I need the money fluid within 8 days. That is a considerable sum. May I inquire what you are planning a fresh existence?" I said plainly. "Disposed? The move's finished with electronic speed. Millions streaming into my accounts like liquid seeking its plane. I registered both lease assets with fresh oversight firms, vetting possible renters who would truly value what they obtained. The monthly lease revenue would supply a constant flow without the sentimental load of my children's tenancy. My own home in Boulder needed little preparation. I had maintained it neat and operational for so long that it presented splendidly to potential purchasers. The initial bid arrived within 9 days. A young kin with kids who perceived the home's promise rather than its humble features. That night, I scanned seaside assets online. The display lighting options I had never permitted myself to envision. Florida beckoned with its vow of rebirth, its separation from all that had defined my prior existence. I boarded the aircraft with sparse baggage, Boulder receding below as we ascended into the heavens. The coastal town of Naples greeted me with salty breeze and boundless views, a sharp difference to Colorado's enclosed basins. The residence I acquired perched on a cliff overlooking the Gulf, its panes framing dusks that colored the sky in hues I had forgotten existed. The property agent, a lady named Olivia, with gentle eyes and gray locks, managed the finalization with the proficiency of someone who had witnessed aspirations fulfilled before. "You selected a marvelous location," she said, giving me the keys. "The group here is very inviting." Yes, she was correct. At the local hub's Night Talk series, I encountered Sophia, a widow who had relocated to Naples after her spouse's passing 4 years prior. We began chatting about literature, then strolls along the shore, then meals overlooking the waves. I nurtured 4 offspring. She confided one night as we viewed the surges crash below my terrace. They come twice yearly, lovely but remote. I have learned that kin is not always about lineage. "What is it about then?" I asked. "Regard, benevolence, the decision to perceive worth in someone beyond what they can supply." Standing on the terrace with her beside me, I wondered at how the sea's immensity reflected the breadth of possibilities unlocked by standing resolute against those who once belittled me. The teachings from my investment starts post-split: endurance, tenacity. The power of compound expansion had applied to more than just funds. We strolled the shore most nights, our discussions flowing as smoothly as the current. She had been an educator, grasped the fulfillment of fostering something valuable. I found myself sharing tales of my investing path, the years of careful build-up that had led to this instant of liberty. You know, Sophia said one dusk-painted night, "I think you have been investing in yourself all along. The funds were just the means." My phone hummed with a text from an unknown digit. Likely one of my offspring attempting a fresh tactic. I glanced at it, then erased it without perusing, my focus returning to the horizon where tomorrow's potentials awaited. The waves pounded in their timeless beat, and I realized I had finally discovered what I had been investing in all these years, not just monetary safety, but the self-esteem to depart from poison, and the insight to recognize true bond when it emerged. As the sun sank below the gulf, coloring the sky in tones of amber and scarlet, I felt a satisfaction I had never known was feasible. The future extended ahead, unbound by the hopes of ungrateful offspring or the specters of past letdowns. I was free. If you enjoyed this tale, take a moment to share your impressions in the comments. What moved you most about Percival's journey? Your thoughts mean the world to us. Feel free to ask questions. Let us dive deeper together. Whether it's about the characters or the twists, we are here to chat and connect. Your interactions keep this channel alive and vibrant. Drop a like, subscribe, and join the conversation, for the next captivating story. Simply click the box on the left. Thank you for listening. We appreciate you.